stop for a moment. Wherever you are right now, sitting, standing, lying still in the dark, I want you to think about what is underneath you. Not the floor, not the foundations, not the soil or the bedrock, or the slow rivers of magma we were all taught about in school. I want you to think about something much deeper. Almost 3,000 kilometers down, pressed against the molten heart of our planet, there are two objects the size of continents. They are taller than anything on the surface of the Earth. They are denser than the rock around them. They are older than the oceans, older than the first breath of life, older than the moon in the sky. And here is the part that should keep you awake tonight. They do not appear to belong to this world at all. For decades, scientists could see them, but they could not explain them. They had no name for what they were or where they came from. They only knew that they were there, vast, silent, and wrong. Two foreign continents buried inside the Earth that should not exist. This is the story of what they are. And the answer is far stranger and far more unsettling than anyone expected. To understand how we found them, you have to understand that we have never actually seen the inside of the Earth. We never will. The deepest hole humanity has ever dug reached about 12 kilometers before the heat and pressure forced us to stop. 12 kilometers on a planet that is 6,300 kilometers to the center. We have scratched the paint, nothing more. So how do you map a place you can never visit? You listen. Every time a large earthquake tears open somewhere on Earth, it sends waves of energy racing through the entire planet, not just along the surface, but straight through the core and out the other side. And those waves are honest. They speed up through cold, stiff rock. They slow down through hot, soft rock. They bend, they scatter, they whisper about everything they pass through on the way. For over a century, we have been recording those whispers on thousands of instruments scattered across the world. And slowly, painstakingly, we began to assemble them into a kind of image, not a photograph, a portrait built entirely from sound. We call it seismic tomography. It is, in a very real sense, an ultrasound of the Earth. And when the picture finally sharpened in the 1980s and 90s, the scientists looking at it went quiet. Because there, near the very bottom of the mantle, the waves were doing something they should not do. They were slowing down, dramatically, in two enormous regions on opposite sides of the planet. Something was down there, something huge. And it was not made of the same stuff as the rest of the Earth. Picture the Earth's interior as a series of shells. The thin crust we live on. Then the mantle, a layer of hot, slowly churning rock almost 3,000 kilometers thick. And at the center, the core, a ball of liquid iron with a solid iron heart, hotter than the surface of the sun. The two anomalies sit right at the bottom of the mantle, draped over the core like two enormous blankets of foreign rock. Scientists gave them a clinical, forgettable name: large, low shear velocity provinces. But the people who study them most closely gave them something better. They named them the way you name things you have come to fear and respect. The one beneath the continent of Africa they call Tuzo. The one beneath the Pacific Ocean they call Jason. And these are not small features. Each of these structures is the size of a continent, and that comparison undersells them badly. They do not just stretch across the floor of the mantle. They rise up from it, towering as much as 1,000 kilometers tall. That is roughly 100 times the height of Mount Everest. If you could somehow stand at the base of Tuzo and look up, the top would be lost far beyond the sky. Together, these two masses may make up several % of the entire mantle. They are among the largest single structures inside our planet. And for a long time, the assumption was simple. They were just part of the Earth. A bit hotter, perhaps. A bit different in composition. A natural lump in the planet's slow churn. But the data kept refusing to agree. Because Tuzo and Jason were not just hotter. They were heavier, denser, chemically distinct from everything around them. They had sharp, steep edges, like islands rising out of the deep. Not the soft, blurry blend you would expect from rock that had been stirring in the mantle for billions of years. It was as if someone had taken material from somewhere else entirely and dropped it into the bottom of our world. And it had never mixed in. It had never belonged. Which raised a question no one wanted to ask out loud. If this material did not come from Earth, then where did it come from? To answer that, we have to go back. Not thousands of years, not millions. We have to go back 4.5 billion years to a time when the Earth was barely the Earth at all. The young solar system was a shooting gallery. Dozens of half-formed worlds, protoplanets, were still careening through space on crossing, unstable orbits. Our planet was a glowing, molten infant, and it was not alone. Sharing almost the same orbit was another world, a rival, about the size of Mars. Astronomers have given it a name, Theia. For a while, the two worlds circled the young sun in an uneasy truce. But orbits like that do not last. Slowly, inevitably, they drifted toward each other. And then, one day, the truce ended. Theia struck the Earth. This was not an asteroid impact. This was not a crater. This was a collision between two planets at a speed of thousands of meters per second. The energy released was almost beyond imagining. The entire surface of the Earth was vaporized in an instant. A torrent of molten rock and superheated gas was flung into space, forming a glowing ring around our shattered, half-liquid world. That ring is the reason you have a moon. Over time, the debris gathered itself together and cooled into the grey companion that has circled us ever since. Every full moon you have ever seen is the scar of that ancient catastrophe. We have known this story, the giant impact, for a long time. But there was always a missing piece, a question that lingered at the edge of the theory, quietly, for decades. Theia was an entire planet. When it hit, it didn't just bounce off. It was destroyed, its body torn apart and folded into the Earth. The moon is only a fraction of what was thrown out. So where did the rest of Theia go? In 2023, a team of scientists put forward an answer that sent a chill through the field. They had run the simulations. They had modeled the impact in extraordinary detail, the collision, the heat, the way the two molten planets mingled and separated in the chaos. And they found that Theia's remains might not have vanished at all. They might still be here. Theia, like Earth, had a mantle, and its mantle was rich in iron, which made it heavier than the rock of the young Earth. According to the models, when Theia plunged into our planet, great blobs of its dense, iron-laden body did not float and did not mix. They sank down through the molten mantle all the way to the bottom until they came to rest against the Earth's core. And there they stayed for 4.5 billion years, too heavy to rise, too solid to dissolve, two enormous masses of a dead planet fossilized at the base of our own. Tuzo and Jason. Stop and let that settle, because it is genuinely difficult to hold in your mind. The blobs that we detected with earthquake waves, the foreign continents that never seemed to belong, may be the literal corpse of the world that killed and remade the early Earth. We are not just standing on the planet that survived the collision. We are standing on top of the planet that didn't. Half of Theia became the moon you look up at. The other half sank into the dark beneath your feet, and it has been there the entire time, through every extinction, every ice age, every empire, every life that has ever lived has lived directly above the grave of another world and never known it. Now, you might tell yourself this is ancient history, a buried tomb, sealed and silent, far too deep to matter, something to marvel at and then forget. I would not be so sure, because Tuzo and Jason are not inert. They are not just sitting there. They are warm, warmer than the mantle around them, and that heat has consequences. From the edges of these two structures, columns of hot rock are thought to rise upward through the entire mantle, like smoke curling off the top of a fire. We call them mantle plumes, and when one of those plumes reaches the surface changes. The Hawaiian Islands sit above a plume. So does Iceland. So does the Yellowstone supervolcano sleeping beneath the American West. These are not random scars. Many of the planet's great hotspots, its most persistent volcanic wounds, trace back down, all the way down to the edges of these two foreign masses at the bottom of the world. And it may go further than scenic volcanoes. In Earth's deep past, there have been moments when the planet seemed to convulse, when staggering volumes of lava erupted across entire regions, poisoning the air, darkening the sky, and triggering some of the worst mass extinctions in the history of life. The eruptions that may have helped end the dinosaurs' world. The Siberian eruptions linked to the Great Dying, the worst extinction the Earth has ever known, when 9 in 10 species vanished. Some scientists suspect that those catastrophes were not random either, that the pulses of destruction rose over millions of years from the restless edges of Tuzo and Jason, that the buried remains of Theia have reached up again and again across the eons to reshape the world above them, and to decide more than once who would live and who would die. The dead planet, it seems, is not finished with us yet. There is one more layer to this, and it is the one that should give you pause. These two masses sit directly against the Earth's outer core, the ocean of liquid iron whose churning generates our planet's magnetic field. That magnetic field is not a minor detail. It is the invisible shield that wraps around the entire planet and deflects the solar wind, the constant storm of radiation streaming off the sun. Without it, that radiation would strip away our atmosphere and our oceans over millions of years and leave the surface sterile. We think that is part of what happened to Mars. Its core cooled, its magnetic field died, and the solar wind slowly peeled the planet's air away into space until nothing was left but a frozen desert. Now consider where Tuzo and Jason sit, right at the boundary where that field is born. By trapping heat against the core, by shaping how it flows, these foreign structures may help steer the very engine that keeps our shield alive. Some researchers believe the position of the continents above, the pattern of the magnetic poles, even the long, slow rhythm of how often the poles flip. All of it may be influenced, in part, by two lumps of a destroyed planet that we cannot see, cannot reach, and barely understand. Think about what that means. The thing that makes Earth livable, the thing that separates us from the dead, airless worlds around us, may be quietly tangled up with the corpse of the world that nearly destroyed us. The catastrophe and the protection bound together 4.5 billion years ago and never undone. Here is what unsettles me most. The continents we live on are temporary. They drift, they collide, they tear apart and rebuild. Given enough time, every coastline you have ever known will be erased and redrawn. The surface of the Earth is restless, impermanent, always becoming something else. But Tuzo and Jason may have barely moved in billions of years. Anchored to the core, too massive to be swept away, they may be the most stable, most permanent structures our planet has. Older than the continents, older than the oceans, older than life. Which means that the most ancient, enduring features of the Earth, the deepest foundations of the only home we have ever had, are not even originally from Earth. They are the leftovers of an alien world, and they have outlasted everything we think of as solid ground. You were taught that the Earth is one planet, one world, formed in one place, belonging entirely to itself. It is not that simple. The Earth is a survivor of a collision, with the body of its attacker still inside it, fused so deeply into our world that the line between the two has been lost for 4.5 billion years. We are, in the most literal sense, a planet built from two. So the next time you feel the ground beneath your feet and call it solid, the next time you trust it to hold you the way you have trusted it your entire life, remember what is down there, almost 3,000 kilometers below, in the dark. Two continents that were never born here are pressed against the heart of our world. They are the remains of a planet that died to create the moon. They have been shaping our volcanoes, perhaps steering our magnetic field, perhaps deciding the fate of life itself, since long before there was anyone here to notice. We did not put them there. We cannot move them. And for most of human history, we did not even know they existed. They were here before us. They will be here long after us. And they are still down there right now, silent and patient, holding up the world. If this changed the way you see the ground beneath you, subscribe to The Earth has more secrets buried inside it than you have been told, and we are only just beginning to dig them up.